attack on the University of Kentucky's campus last month. Now, we warn you, the video is disturbing.
Could you stop? No. Thank you.
And Asian Americans are reporting an increase in racist encounters.
Who told me that Ricky and his friends were racially attacked and then turned around and said, I'm not taking a statement. You will have to wait for 24 hours. Now, even an idiot would know if the 4 people go together and they are racially attacked, 3 people come back, the one that's missing is in danger.
School discipline. As studies have shown that students from certain racial or ethnic backgrounds are disproportionately subjected to harsher disciplinary measures.
Both here in Australia and across the world, a loss of stand in this debate in a referendum year is really a loss for the national conversation.
Fired up behind me, and for this cause on campus, it was just like, I started crying and like I got a little like weak in the knees.
Hey guys, I am Ryan and I'm grateful to have you guys join us for a little while for our podcast about how is racial justice going on in schools. I'm here with 2 special guests, Isaac and Iris. We're glad to have you guys join us for the podcast. So before we start, Isaac, can you explain to us a little bit about what racial?
So, racial justice, how is it going on in schools? Well, first of all, diversity and inclusion policies. Schools and educational institutions, like our schools, have implemented diversity and inclusion policies which are aimed at promoting equality and addressing racial disparities. These policies may include guidelines on curriculum development, student admissions, and hiring practices. And besides that, there's also culturally responsive teaching, where there's a growing recognition of the importance of culturally responsive teaching, which involves incorporating diverse perspectives, histories, and stories into studies and curriculums. And besides that, anti-bias education, where schools are increasingly adopting anti-bias education programs to combat racism and prejudice. And also equity in discipline. There is a growing focus on addressing racial disparities in school discipline, as studies have shown that students from certain racial or ethnic backgrounds are disproportionately subjected to harsher disciplinary measures. And also student-led activism, where students themselves are actually increasingly taking an active role in advocating or addressing for racial justice in schools. Youth-led movements and student organizations have emerged worldwide, demanding systemic changes. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much. Haris, do you have
Oh yeah, I want to talk how does racism start in school. Racism in school can have various origins and can be influenced by a range of factors. Here are some common ways in which racism may start or be perpetrated in educational settings. Individual bias, such as like racism can arise from individual bias or prejudice held by students, teachers, and administrators or other school staff. This bias can stem from personal experience, cultural influences, or stereotypes absorbed from society. And then, of course, why is racism common in schools? Racism can be common in school for several reasons, including societal influences, lack of diversity and representation institutional, discrimination and address, implicit bias, peer influence, and bullying. Schools are microcosm of society, and racism exists within broader societal structures. Students bring their attitude, beliefs, and bias from the wider community into the school environment, leading to the perpetuation of racism. Schools that lack of racial and ethnic diversity may create an environment where students have limited exposure to different culture and perspectives. This can lead to misunderstanding, stereotypes, and bias based on ignorance or limited exposure to diverse experience. And also besides that, Students can perpetuate racism through acts of bullying, exclusion, or discrimination against their peers based on race or ethnicity. Peer pressure on and the desire to fit in can lead to an adoption and reinforcement of racist attitudes and behaviors. And also, who causes the racism in schools? Racism in schools can be caused by various individuals and groups, including students, teachers and social staff, administrators and school system, and parents and families. For students can contribute to racism in school through their individual beliefs, attitudes, action, and interaction with their peers. Prejudice and bias held by students which may be influenced by their upbringing, social environment, or personal experiences can manifest as racist behavior or discriminatory actions. Teachers and school staff can unintentionally perpetuate racism through their own bias and prejudice. This can occur through differential treatment, lower expectation, or limited support for students from marginalized racial or ethnic backgrounds. It's important to note that not all the teachers or school staff contribute to racism, and many actively work against it. It's important to remember that the causes of racism in school are complex, interconnected, and influenced by various factors.
Thank you so much, Haris. That was good. Okay. So back to Isaac.
So the impacts of racism on students' social life and studies. Racism can have significant impacts on students' social life and studies. Well, here are some of the impacts. First, psychological and emotional impact, where people experience racism can lead to feelings of anger, frustration, sadness, and anxiety among students. It can negatively affect their self-esteem, confidence, and overall mental well-being. Students may also experience social isolation and a sense of not belonging, which can impact their social interactions and emotional development. Next, academic performance. Well, racism can adversely affect students' academic performance. Discrimination and biased treatment may create barriers to learning and hinder students' engagement and motivation. This can also lead to decreased educational outcomes. Self-identity and cultural disconnection, where racism can erode students' sense of self-identity and pride in their cultural heritage. They may feel pressure to conform to dominant cultural norms or face challenges in expressing and celebrating their own cultural backgrounds. This disconnection can have a profound impact on their sense of belonging and well-being. And social exclusion and bullying. Students who experience racism may face social exclusion and bullying based on their race or ethnicity. They may be targeted, mocked, or marginalized by their peers, which can lead to feelings of isolation, reduced social interactions, and a negative impact on their social development. And lastly, limited opportunities and resources, where racist attitudes and biases can result in limited opportunities and resources for students from separated or segregated ethnic backgrounds. This can include access to advanced courses, extracurricular activities, sports mentorship, and educational support systems generally. The lack of equitable opportunities can hinder students' educational and career prospects.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, so okay, do you guys have any ideas, ways or steps to overcome this overcome racial justice, racism?
So one way I thought about is through education and awareness, where schools can integrate anti-racism education into their curriculum. For example, implementing lessons that explore the history of racism and promote empathy. Parents can engage in open conversations with their children about racism and share personal experiences, discussing the importance of treating everyone with respect and equality. And also lastly, social media platforms can launch educational campaigns. For instance, Instagram launched the #ShareBlackStories campaign to promote Black voices, culture, and experiences. Harris, why don't you say one?
I have an idea about foster dialogue and open communication. where school can organize diversity and inclusion workshops or events that encourage students to share their perspective and experience regarding race. Parents can create a supportive environment at home where children feel comfortable discussing racism and asking questions.
So the last part is to promote inclusive representation where schools can organize cultural events and celebrations that showcase diverse traditions and histories. For example, hosting a multiracial fair where students can share their cultural heritage. And parents can also support and encourage their children's interest in learning about different cultures, such as attending cultural festivals or visiting museums. And social media platforms can highlight diverse content creators. TikTok's Black History Month campaign featured Black creators who shared educational content, dance, and storytelling.
Okay, thank you so much, Isaac and Harris, for those steps, which some of you guys want to take note on. Okay, last but not least, we're moving on to some Q&A. Last week, we posted a questions asking you guys some questions, which you guys would like to ask our two guests. Some of you guys responded with amazing questions. Well, let's get started. Okay, question 1: how can we effectively address systemic racism?
First is through education and awareness. For me, we should promote education and awareness about historical context and ongoing impact of systemic racism. This includes teaching the history of racial injustice and exploring privilege. And besides that, policies can be reformed. Advocate for policy changes that address systemic racism, such as criminal justice reform, equitable access to healthcare, and education. Another idea is to equalize the opportunity and representation, where the government should implement policies and practices that promote equal opportunity and representation in all sectors, including business, government, education, and the arts. This can involve initiatives like affirmative action, diverse hiring practices, and inclusive procurement policies. Yeah.
Okay, thank you, Isaac. Okay, Harris, what action can individuals take to combat everyday racism?
In my point of view, you can educate yourself, like take the initiative to educate yourself about different cultures, history, and experience, like reading books, watching documentaries, and engage with diverse perspectives to develop a deeper understanding of the impact of racism. Besides that, you can reflect on your own bias. Reflect on your own bias and prejudice. Examine your assumptions, stereotypes, and privilege. Be open to learning and learning, and actively challenge and confront your own bias when they arise. Lastly, we can be an ally, actively support and stand in solidarity with individuals and communities affected by racism. Use your privilege to advocate for their rights, amplify voices, and support initiatives that promote equality and justice. Yeah.
Okay, so third, how can we assure equal opportunities and representation for marginalized communities?
We should eliminate bias in hiring and promotion, where policies should be implemented and practices that promote diversity and inclusion in recruitment, hiring, and promotion processes. Use blind hiring techniques, establish diverse hiring panels, and also provide equal opportunities for career advancement. We should also address educational disparities, where we should invest in educational resources and support for marginalized communities to bridge the achievement gap. We should provide equitable access to quality education and mentorship programs along with scholarships.
I also have an idea where we can encourage supplier diversity, like promoting supplier diversity by actively seeking out and supporting business owned by individuals from marginalized communities. And we can also establish policies and procurement.
Why is they laughing, bro? Why are you laughing?
Okay. Sorry. Okay. I have an idea where we can encourage supplier diversity by promoting supplier diversity by actively seeking out and supporting businesses owned by individuals from marginalized communities, establish policies and procurement practices that prioritize inclusion and provide equal opportunities for diverse suppliers. And last but not least, advocate for representation in leadership. Encourage the representation of marginalized communities in leadership roles across all sectors. Promote diversity on boards of directors, in executive positions, and in decision-making bodies to ensure diverse perspectives are included in shaping policies and practices. Yeah.
Okay, thank you so much, you guys, for answering those questions. Okay, so guys, we have come to an end for our podcast. So before we end our podcast, Haris and Isaac, do you guys have anything to say to our viewers? Anything you want to tell them?
Thank you for the support and the comments. Stay tuned for future episodes. And one quote I remember from a speaker and an idol. It is said, "Respect for ourselves guides our morals, and respect for others guides our manners."
Wow, that was really nice. Okay, Haris?
From me, I just stand by one, my Albert Einstein, where he speaks, I speak for everyone in the same way, whether he's the garbage man or the president of the university. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you guys so much for joining us in this podcast. It's been amazing with you guys. Yeah, so please stay tuned for future podcasts about more interesting topics. Thank you guys.
Thank you very much for
Thank you
inviting
very
us.
much for inviting us.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.